Hey, Launch family. Today's episode is with Michael Maidens. He's a member of Jeff's Platinum Plus Mastermind group since 2011. And for most of the last decade and a half, he has been helping people build online businesses aligned with their passion and making a positive impact in the world. His clients have literally generated millions of subscribers, tens of millions of dollars in revenue, and most importantly, got their message out to the people who need it most. Now, in this hour with Michael, we cover a lot, but the core topic here is authenticity in the marketing world. You'll hear Michael's story of how he went from software development to personal development and seven-figure marketer. What is authenticity in marketing and how is it powerful? How to leverage personal stories for impact, how you can create a business that succeeds financially, but is also fulfilling and sustainable over the long term. And we throw a fun taco break in there as well. So hit subscribe if you're on YouTube, the plus sign in that Spotify app, or hit follow on Apple Podcasts so you don't miss any of our upcoming episodes. And here's today's Dare to Launch with Michael Maidens.
You have to love your offer so much that you just sit there and go, if I was a person out there and I had this, I had this problem and I wanted this outcome, I can't think of anywhere better for them to be than inside my program. And I shared with everyone the strategy, and everyone went, well, that's going to be a huge success or a huge failure. Let us know how you go. I don't think you can be an imposter if you are being your true self. So I think that's the lesson. I do think that authenticity is a precondition to abundance. I also do believe that authenticity is the most sustainable way of being in this game for a long time and living the life that feels really good too.
Hello, Launch family. So happy to have you listening to today's episode. My name is Chris, and today we're going to be talking about authenticity and all its facets in marketing. And as always, I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Jeff Walker.
Hey, everyone.
And today we have a very special guest. He runs a company helping people build knowledge-based businesses in the health, wellness, and personal development space, step into their true value, authenticity, and build products, offers, and customers that they truly love. He's a long-standing member of Jeff's Platinum Plus Mastermind group, Mr. Michael Maidens. Welcome to the show.
Hey, everyone, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, very excited to have you on. And so maybe to start off this conversation, because I know it's going to go all different cool ways, Michael, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and maybe context of your business and what you do, and then we can get into kind of your relationship with Jeff and everything that goes along with that.
My journey's been a little bit of a, not a straight line into this world, but about probably the last 13 years, I've been helping people with their get their message out in the world through online platforms and mainly using the teachings of Jeff and the product launch formula to get it out there. It's I love helping people with their magic that they've got inside them, unpack it, pull it out, put it into an offer, and get it to the people who need their solution the most. So I truly believe that so many people are walking around with all these solutions, and all these people are sitting around with all these problems. And the magic of the world today is we can match those people up no matter where they are in the world. And I don't know, that's why audiences and launches and offers help actually do that. So I think in some little way we're making the world a better place.
Awesome. No doubt you are. Well, and the thing is, I feel like the new guy in this conversation because you two go way back, right? Like from what I understand, I mean, you came into this world like well over a little over a decade, more than that ago. You've been in Plat Plus for a long time. You've been out to, you've been on the river trip with Jeff down the Grand Canyon. I heard you've done you've been out to his house and played tennis. Like I'm the new guy in this conversation for sure. How did you get into Jeff's world, and how did you come to get to know Jeff and all this product launch formula stuff?
Yeah, cool. Well, at one stage I was writing software for a long time. And when I found out that I was selling software and found that I was always talking about the stuff, the things that we tend to lean towards when we're talking about, we're building things. And so I started to learn about marketing and reach your audience, and came across, Jeff and product launch formula. And what I love to do is implement my knowledge, while learning it. So at the time, I actually started up a tennis coaching business called tennisassist.com. And I bought Product Launch Formula to actually help me learn all of the marketing and execute on my tennis coaching business, which was super, super interesting. And then as it all unfolds, I fell more in love with the psychology of marketing and humans more so than I did with computers. So yeah, that's what started me off into this world. So that was probably 2009 that I actually bought Product Launch Formula. And then in 2011, the opportunity came up to go to PLF Live. So as a little Aussie, I put on my big boy pants and jumped on a plane and had an absolute amazing time. And in that room, I just I don't know. I just felt like I resonated with all the people in the room. I resonated with Jeff. I obviously consumed. You get to know people so well through video, but then there's Jeff standing on stage, and I don't know. It was just this. I felt very much at home, and didn't want the experience to end. And at that stage, there was an opportunity to join Jeff's Platinum Mastermind, so I did apply for that.
Cool. So you didn't expect that you'd be playing tennis with him, I guess, down the road, or were you hoping that might be the case?
Well, in actual fact, we met on the tennis court in person. And
oh, really?
Yeah, it was one of the guys in the Plat, who was already a Plat member, Will Hamilton. I'd written some things for his website, Fuzzy Yellow Balls, and he said, "Hey, if you want, we're playing tennis with Jeff in the morning. If you want to come along, we're just going to have a hit of doubles." So, yeah, I actually did meet Jeff on the tennis court, which was kind of cool.
So that was Monday morning. So to put this in context, we do a 3-day live event called PLF Live. We've been doing it for like 15 times. We've done it. And this was back when it was an in-person event. We were down in Scottsdale. And so it's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And they're full days for me. So it was just me on stage all day for like 8, 9, 10 hours a day. For Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So Monday morning, the event's all over. I finally get to relax. And Will's like, I knew, so Will wasn't in my mastermind. He's like, I'm bringing my rackets. Bring your rackets, Jeff. So I brought my rackets, and we're going to hit, the hotel's got a tennis court. And so Will's a very, very good tennis player. And I'd never actually hit with him. That was the first time I ever did, was that morning. And he brings along Michael. And Michael, at that point, you had applied for Platt, but we hadn't even gone through the applications. I didn't know who you were. I didn't know anything. But these guys, so what Michael hasn't told you is that he was actually a touring pro. I mean, he's a tennis player. He's like, and I'm like a lifelong tennis player. I think I'm somewhere, for those tennis geeks out there, I'm either like somewhere between a 3.5 and a 4.0, I think, is what I've been told. Actually, that's what Will Hamilton said. I was a 4.0. I don't believe it, but Will told me that. So I go out to hit with these guys, and I'm fairly competent at hitting, but they're hitting the ball to me. I literally could not hit the ball. I'm like framing every shot. I just hitting out the frame. They're flying everywhere. I'm just like, I'm just sleep deprived. That's the problem. I'm sleep deprived. And little did I know, these guys are just hitting balls that are out of my league.
Yeah, I remember being so nervous, and I remember even at one stage serving, just going, how you just overthink things, and second serves, and I'm just like overthinking it. But there was a moment there where I think we played together, and there was a moment there where I had this like, hang on, I think I was telling you about something. I can't remember what it was, but I'm like, hang on, Jeff's listening to me teach him. It was this total, I've been listening to you for however long. And I'm like, hang on, Jeff's listening to me?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we could talk about tennis all day here, but it was just, I learned that tennis, a whole different level of the way tennis was played that morning.
Wow. That's cool. And so you go from this moment and actually, meeting him, coaching him now in tennis, and then getting into the actual Platinum Plus Mastermind. I'm curious, like, you've been in it ever since. What's what's kept you here? Like, what's kept you going and wanting to be a part of this community specifically?
Yeah, it was something that definitely when I met Jeff and the people who Jeff attracts, it was not like anything else I had been exposed to, seen, and honestly, I think I've even said to Jeff at one stage. I said, you're either a really really nice guy or you're a really great actor." And then as I got to know Jeff, I found out that he wasn't a very good actor.
Yeah.
So it was just something that I remember just thinking, I can't, this can't end. This it was just a vibrational thing. It was a frequency thing, and inside all the people that Jeff attracts, but also inside all of the programs, they're just real. I believe people who are in and around Jeff are doing things for the right reasons, in the right way, and honestly have that wanting to make the world a better place. Which I don't know. I think it's more than just flashy possessions. I mean, if you like flashy possessions, great, but it's on top of making the world a better place.
So that authenticity, that topic we're talking about, was like the first thing, or one of the first things that seems to have attracted you into this. And I would agree. Like, one of the reasons I wanted to work with Jeff is I felt that he was the same on the front stage as the backstage, and I guess I'm curious if we wanted to give some people some thoughts on this buzzword that a lot of people are talking about in marketing right now is you got to be authentic, and authenticity is a great marketing tool. Like, do you guys think about that as far as like, do you really have to think about your authenticity, or is it something you just have to be? I'm like, how do people think through that when they go to say, I've got to go sell a product or I've got to go make my business?
So I started, for those of you just getting to know me, I started in my online business, my first online business in 1996. And I was publishing about the stock market back then. And I didn't have, I had no built-in advantages. I had no credentials. There were no letters after my name. I wasn't registered this or registered that. It was just me publishing an email newsletter from my home. And that's a very crowded market. And so early on in my career, I did a couple things that made all the difference. And one of them was I focused on building an email list right from the beginning. And the other one was realizing that I could only be the best me. I couldn't compete with the people, with Morgan Stanley. I couldn't compete with CNBC. I couldn't compete with these big corporations with lots of credentials and lots of employees. And I could just be the best of me. And so I just wrote as if I was writing to, like, I'd write a newsletter about the stock market, but I wrote it as if I was writing to a friend of mine. And I guess there's some authenticity. It is weird because it is such a buzzword that it's become a big thing, but right from the start, it's like, I can only be the best me. And weirdly enough, it seemed like people ended up resonating with me. So I just kept on going in that direction ever since.
Yeah. The thing that I feel about authenticity, it's a spiritual journey in a way. A lot of people come into this world to almost do what they're told, whether they've come from a corporate environment where your knowledge is your value, and then you be someone, and it may not necessarily be you. And then you try and do that in this world, but things just don't feel right, or at least they're not. I see a lot of people not being able to sustain something that's not truly them. And so, yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff that I do with offers, I feel like, offers is what you kind of end up doing. But what I really unpack is people's, authenticity and where their value is, their story, and leaning into them. And then, your niche becomes your authentic self. That's what I love, is when people start to own their stories, they own themselves, and they own their messaging, they own their positioning. They feel like they don't have competitors, just like Jeff said, where, I'm the best at being me. So now all these other, doubts and judgments all disappear. I feel like that's why, and that's why I think the live launches were a great step into that full-on, authenticity. And it can include all the the stumbles along the way, or just the casualness or the humanness, rather than the fully cut and polished one. So yeah, I do think that authenticity is a precondition to abundance. I also do believe that authenticity is the most sustainable way of, of being in this game for a long time, and living the life that feels really good too.
So Michael just said these phrases come out of him that you're like, wait, that authenticity is a precondition to abundance. That's awesome. So
Yeah.
what does that mean? Tell us a little bit more about that.
I feel like people can appear to have abundance, or think that what they've got is abundance, but there'll be something in them that doesn't feel quite right. And that thing it's like the shadow in the cave. It's the thing that you don't want to shine the light on, or something that just feels sticky. And if you actually do step up to be the most brave version of yourself, and you do actually go in and shine the light in those caves, and go, okay, I could do this and be, abundant in these terms. But if you are actually in your true authenticity and who you actually are, then the abundance can't help but match you there, because you are being your full self. And I believe that we live in a world where there's giving and receiving in all different directions. Not necessarily the same direction that you gave is the direction you receive, but I do think that when you are being your full, open, authentic self, then that's the frequency you need to attract the right people as well. So many people, I think it's just, it comes in, the right people will come in that match your authenticity and that authentic frequency, and then you just can't wait to keep on doing that.
When I heard you say that, like I think you just said, I'm going to say what it meant to me, but I think you just said it already. But I guess maybe it's a repeat. But like when you turn the lights off, you turn the camera off, you turn the lights off on your live broadcast, and you can just really feel like you don't need to go take a shower. You can, because I remember one time where I was on someone else's webinar, and I was sort of appearing on their webinar, and after the webinar, I was like, wow, I feel like I need to go take a shower. That was some pretty slimy things he did there. I'm not so stoked, not going to make this mistake again. But like, if you can be like, when you turn the lights off of your broadcast and you end it, or you hit the you hit the send button on your video, and you know that you have been authentic to who you are, and you've been able to make an offer that is going to help people, and you can feel great about your product and your offer and how you made it. To me, like, that's authenticity. And on the opposite point, like if you don't feel that way, then I guess you don't have abundance. So, I mean, that you don't have an abundant life. You might have the Ferrari down in the garage, and you might be in your mansion and actually own them as opposed to renting them. But if you're not feeling great about what you just did, if you feel like you need to go to take a shower, then you're not abundant. But if you feel great about it, it doesn't, having this Ferrari is great, and not having the Ferrari is great. But I think that's when I hear that phrase, authenticity is a precondition to abundance. That's what I took away.
There's almost like personal work, right, that you have to do prior to being able to go out there and be your authentic self. And you mentioned a phrase around being brave enough to kind of go in there and do the work and look through it. How do you help people with that bravery around taking that step into themselves and being brave enough to bring that inner person, or what I'm saying is that thing that makes them feel scared might actually be the thing that makes them especially special or impactful in their niche. So how do you take people through that process to get them to the other side?
It's the part that I actually love. It really is, because people like the offer, especially in where we're not selling socks or something like that. We're selling ourselves in a way, the knowledge, and we are the face. A lot of people in these spaces we are the face. So there's a lot that comes with putting an offer out there. And so what I really do is I love to think that there's people out there. It's almost like if you're feeling that you need to get this out there, the universe has already got people asking for you specifically to deliver it. It's not it's your story. It's your version of whether it was whatever your topic might be. It's the way that you experienced this life and how you came through it and how you solved the problem. Someone else might be talking about the same topics and selling it a different way, but it's people want to actually hear it from you because you may be a mum, you may have the same number of kids, you may live in the same part of the world, you may have had different traumas in your history that they resonate with as well. And this is the vulnerability. This is where you actually have to share some of those things to go, this is me. And it's brave to dig these things up. But we all know it's there's a common phrase where it's, if you say the things that are going on in other people's heads where they're not brave enough to actually talk about it. It's the unspoken things. If you can be the person that speaks about the things that like, whoa, hang on, you've just got them. You've just jumped so many rungs in intimacy and depth and authenticity that they're not listening to anyone else anymore. It's like, whoa, you're my person. And if you can then give them insights to solving that or see that in a different way that they've not seen before, you now become the authority in their eyes as well. And then so when you take people through this process of realizing that they have all this beautiful magic inside them, that we're not trying to sell to everyone. We actually don't want everyone. We want just the absolute perfect people that want to hear from you. And the right people will love you and the wrong people won't. And both are amazing. And once people start to feel that and really truly believe that, and it is sometimes an iterative process. You don't just come out the gate and go, hey, this is me. It's like there's learning cycles in there. And so some people try to hold back for too long, but just get those learning cycles in and you discover those messages and that true authentic self that starts to make its way out to the surface.
So where does imposter syndrome come in?
Yep. So I feel like imposter syndrome is a healthy thing to think because I think it acknowledges that you have empathy where, I think people who are too arrogant don't have imposter syndrome because they're too like, I'm the best, something like that. And so I feel like that imposter syndrome is probably a sign that you do have a little bit of heart there. You are genuine. So where it can be seen as disempowering, I'd probably like to reframe that as maybe a gift, that you aren't just someone who thinks that they know everything. So but I don't think you can be an imposter if you are being your true self. So I think that's the lesson. It's like, if I'm just being me, I can't be an imposter of me. Similar to what you said before, Jeff, you can be best at you. Like, so the more you lean into you, the less you're being an imposter. It's that gap of just going, oh, okay, I have to be more me. I have to be more me. I have to be more me. And there's no imposter. It's you.
Yeah. Although I'm just thinking, like, if I'm listening to this, I'm like, okay, they're telling me to be my authentic self. But I'm just scared that, I'm not good enough. I would be my authentic self if I felt good about who that authentic self is, but I don't know, it's just me, and why would anyone listen to me? And I can see it being a real stumbling block towards authenticity, that they don't think their authentic self is good enough to share.
Mm-hmm. And that becomes, that becomes the personal growth, that we all think we're in this for business growth, and we realize there's this little personal growth thing in the way. Yeah. But I invite people to just start going, look, you already are helping people. You already are. Just because you haven't done a monetary exchange on an online brand or program, whatever, like, look in your life of what conversations are you already having? Where do you go? If you go to the gym, do people come up and talk to you about certain topics? What do people ask you about? What do you feel like you're having conversations with friends about often? Like, all these things, it's almost like your true self is already happening automatically, and just start to take note of the conversations that you have that you don't even think anything of. I mean, that's the flip side of it. We think that, we have to be something that we're not, because that's where the value is. But in actual fact, the thing that, that people find most value about all of us is something that we probably value the least because it comes so naturally to us. However, it's back to front. It's like, well, hang on, that can't find that valuable, because that's just, isn't that obvious? That just comes easy. But to someone else, a subset of people, that is like mind blowing, and they're your audience. So
I can see there being another stumbling block that might be similar to imposter, but it might be different than that too. Because like, okay, I craft an offer, I craft something, and I'm being my authentic self, right? I'm putting myself out there, and I'm feeling like I'm out there. But then at first, I'm just trying to get that someone to buy in, that first person. My fear is like, well, what if nobody buys this thing, right? And then it's really a rejection, because it's my whole self being out there. It's my story and doing this offer. It's me really out there. I think that a lot of people have that fear that the more authentic they get, the more the rejection is going to hurt if it doesn't work out. So that might be a little different than imposter syndrome. I'm curious, like, how do you address that with people?
Oh, that's a real thing, and for sure, and it's probably an audience thing. To be honest, that's then an audience thing, and so it comes back to
Michael. I don't want to interrupt.
Yeah,
you,
go.
but I agree. Audience, but it could also be audience, offer, or copy. That. Yeah, so I'm going to throw it out there. I'll let you go from here, but yeah.
No, yep, audience, offer, copy, and yeah, and also timing. Don't forget, like, let's respect other people. We are the biggest thing in our world, but we're a part of other people's worlds. And if they reject it, I've actually in one particular launch, it was someone in the Platt group as well. We ran the exact same launch to the exact same audience. So we built an audience. I think I'm just going to pick a number. It would have been 30, 35,000 people, let's say. And we converted at 8% in this window of time. We ran the same launch, like exact same videos to the same people. We didn't rebuild a new email list. It was the same list. We did that about 10 weeks later, and we got the same conversion rate. Now, in theory, those second 8% rejected the first time, in theory. But they obviously, it was a timing thing, whether they, we all jump into different programs at different times in our lives. And although we may be fully in love with this and the offer and the copy and the audience, and but the timing may not be quite right. So let's give ourselves some grace as well, that a no is a not yet. For whatever reason, it's a not yet. And I like to just flip that and just go, cool. All right, those people, it's just a not yet. It's not a no. And the more that you keep on leaning into yourself, the more that you'll repel the people who are not right, and you'll actually then allow, an attraction of people who are right.
Makes sense. Yeah. Is there anything that you teach that is really that you just have to teach every single person that you go through and coach or work with, in terms of how to get to that authentic offer, or to communicate with their audience?
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the big things, and I think it's probably it ties into the offer, because it can be okay. Back when we all went to school and maybe college, we were told that the more that we know, the more we were valued. It was like, so go and learn more, and you'll be paid based on what you know. And that keeps on going and going and going. Now, what happens is that if you come into this world, you're like, right, I need to impress everyone, and I need to create a program that actually has got everything that I know, because that's how I'll get the most amount of money. And I think what people end up doing is they try and push their knowledge into programs. They push it, and it becomes almost like a university or college degree in their knowledge or their view of the world. Now, what I've seen happen is people will take a long time to actually get that out the door, because it's just so complicated. There's so many different dimensions and angles, but I know this, and how do I stick that in there? I know this, and how do I stick that in there? And what ends up happening, I sort of call that push. You're pushing your knowledge into a product. And instead, what I invite people to do is actually flip it and think of the outcome first, and go, what is the outcome that I want these people to have and achieve? And then I actually pull from my knowledge. So rather than push my knowledge, I actually reach back and I pull from my knowledge only the pieces of information that they will need to achieve that outcome. So now the clarity comes in. The offer becomes very clear. You're not trying to say, hey, my offer is everything I know. It's actually, no, you've got a specific outcome that you're looking to achieve and a problem to solve. And this is how we're going to actually solve it. So it's actually pulling from our knowledge rather than pushing our knowledge. And therefore the offer becomes very clear. The consumer or the person, the prospect that's looking at it, they don't have to do much thinking because you're speaking from their viewpoint, from the outcome viewpoint, their problem viewpoint. And, oh, right, wow, now I can see in the deliverables how we're going to achieve it. And it's not overwhelming. It's not confusing. I'm not saying, hey, I already know all these things. And when people do that, I think it's just something that it makes life so much easier for them to build a product, but for then the person considering it to actually see that in their future.
And it's also automatically going to make the copy be very benefit driven instead of being deliverable driven. And this is huge because we see this mistake over and over and over in our community where people, they spend all this time creating this product and pushing everything into it. And now when they go to make an offer or in their copy, in their launch, in their pre-launch, they're more focused on the stuff, how many videos there are, how many workbooks there are, how many Q&A sessions there are, how many coaching calls there are. When at the end of the day, you want to be speaking to the outcomes that you're going to be delivering, that your prospects will get. And when you start it the way Michael was talking about, from the end of like, what is the outcome? Let's design the product for that. And then that's going to drive your marketing into a much more powerful position where you are focused on the outcomes.
And that's how I got into this world too, because back in the software days you're talking like, as a programmer, you spend so much time building all these features, literally. You're spending ridiculous amounts of time. And I would be presenting to a client and they'd be like, oh, can we move this little label over here? Or can that button line up with that? And I'm sitting there going, okay, that takes me about 30 seconds to do, but you're totally ignoring all this magic that took me like weeks or like 40 hours of doing this report and this, like all the complexity behind it. But until you meet them with what they're interested in first, which is how am I going to use this? This is, what's the benefit? They don't care about the complexities. And exactly the same with an offer too. It's like they're not even interested in the deliverables if they're not yet interested in the outcome. And I like to think always have this challenge. If I could write a promise with a price, a one-line promise with a price next to it, has that done 80% of the heavy lifting of the offer? It's like, if you can give me that outcome for that price, cool, I'm in. Just now I just need to make sure that, I don't have to be in person in some place and it overlaps with whatever the deliverables are. I need to obviously have the deliverables there, but it's like, am I almost 80% sold just by the promise and the price? And then the rest is kind of, making sure that, oh, cool, I can see myself doing that. Yes, I can see myself turning up weekly or consuming video or audio or whatever it may be. So.
Yeah, I love that. That it's almost like an iceberg, right? Like you got to get that tip that everyone can see, but all the depth underneath it is what you are bringing. That's the programming, I guess, as a programmer you were talking about, right? They only see the button, but it's all that other stuff below that creates the magic that makes that whole site or program work. And you talked a lot about clarity, right? Like the clarity in the offer. And that really seems to me like it's what resonates with your people or what hits the people that is authentic in you and also resonates with them. How do you know when something is clear? Is the only way really to test it and get it out there? Or are there other ways that you think about that in order to kind of know that it's hitting?
Yeah. I feel like with lots of complex things, the simpler it gets, the more it's almost like the intelligence creates something that's very simple to understand. And it should almost be obvious in hindsight, but takes you a long way to get there. Whether it's like, E equals MC squared seems quite simple, but the brilliance is in making it actually understandably in a super simple way. And to that point, the clarity is I love people to get to a point where they actually love their offer first. I feel like it's something where if you have to love your offer so much that you just sit there and go, if I was a person out there and I had this, I had this problem and I wanted this outcome, I can't think of anywhere better for them to be than inside my program. You just absolutely love it. Then the selling part kind of disappears. It becomes, it's clear because you're just so in love with it. You're in love with the clarity of it. But then the selling part is you just can't wait to tell people about it. And so the clarity is something that is super, super simple as a result, but then something that you actually, you fall in love with, the simplicity of the message, the people it will attract, the deliverable, you just can't wait to do it.
I remember back PLF Live, I don't know, let's call this, PLF Live 2014 or something like that. So you joined Platt in 2011, and after about 3 years, you're in it. And back then, at PLF Live, I used to make an offer. There'd be 3 days of content, and in there, I'd make an offer for the mastermind to join Platt Plus. I no longer do that. The group is like at capacity, and its openings are very rare, so I don't need to make offers. It's probably 14 or 15 was the last time I made an offer in 2014 or 2015 for Platt. But I remember talking to you at PLF Live when I was, getting ready to go out and make this offer. And I've never been a natural pitch man. That's just not my natural strength. And so I was talking to you about it, and you're just like, dude, why don't you just go out there and say, this is our community. Here we are. If you want to go deeper, applications at the back of the room. Just because, this offer was so unbelievably amazing, and it was just an extension of that community we developed in that event for 3 days. It's like, it's pretty simple. It's like, do you want this 365 days a year? Just go out there and say that, which is great advice, but of course I made it all complicated. Yeah.
There is that shift there. It's like if you truly do believe it, like, and that's the invitation, isn't it? Just to go, yeah, how can I get my program and myself and my audience and the people that are in there just to go, I just can't wait to take the next group of people through or invite new people into this world or whatever, and just love it so much that if you truly believe that this is the best spot for them, then you can't help but talk about it. It's just you're not selling anything.
I think I actually do have a letter now that, like, if people wander in and they're interested about Platt, we have to give them something. So I've got a letter, and it says, and somewhere in there is a line that basically says, I am really good at writing sales copy. But no matter what I say in this letter, it's way better than what I'm telling you, which is true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I want to talk about what you just mentioned there, which was this belief, right? Because so many people, I think, that are maybe listening to this or maybe just out there looking, they have belief is something that gets easier and easier to have. And really, I think what we're landing on is conviction, right? Because once you have some clients you've created transformation for, and you have that testimonial, and you have the outside validation from people who have gone through your program, you've created that, then the belief for you to go back to people and say, this is what we do, this is what's so great about it, this is why you need to be here, that iron bar of conviction behind what you're saying, it makes a difference. Like no doubt that, especially when from a point of selling, it makes a difference when somebody has real belief and conviction in it. But how do you get to that point? I mean, is it just through, well, I've done this a bunch of times, I got myself, and it just has to keep increasing that way? Or is there something that you can do to give yourself that like oomph of like, I believe in what I'm doing in the offer and in the transformation that people can take and use? It's
definitely I suppose the reinforcement loop. It's the ego that wants the reinforcement from the external world, and it's your inner authentic self that knows that it's and it's not an arrogant strength. It's not an arrogant belief. It's actually just a content belief as well. But you do want to make sure that there's a line between am I being my true self and attracting the right people, or am I actually need to do a better job at speaking to attract my ideal people as well. But it does come with cycles. I think, Jeff, we talk about confidence as being one of the biggest things that we need to make sure that we protect. And there's a difference there between being arrogant and confident, because I think confident is just an internal peacefulness rather than arrogant can be a high level or surface level sort of coat that you wear, so to speak. So I think the belief and the conviction, and whereas if it comes back to your true story and you just believe, let's say that I think a lot of people in our world at the moment are teaching something that they had to discover for themselves. You know what I mean? Whether it's overcoming something health related or relationship related or whatever, they had to overcome it themselves. They didn't learn this from anywhere else, and so they know it worked for them. And so I would invite people to lean into that, just to say, it did work for you. This is how you got to where you are, and believe it to be true, and believe that there's other people out there in almost the same situation as you who need you to help them through that. And then the job becomes finding the audience, but also then, as Jeff said before, it's the copy, and it's the it's speaking to them in a way that they really do resonate with it. It's the offer and the copy. So, yeah.
I think before we started this conversation, you mentioned in passing that you had been involved fairly intimately, 90 plus launches, I think is what you said, somewhere around that, like in all the ins and outs of it. Like, I'm curious, this is sort of I'm curious, is there any launch that comes to mind where you've said, like, I learned the biggest lesson here, or I learned some really great lesson here in one of those 90 launches? Because there's got to be some awesome stories out of 90 different launches you've gone through.
Yeah. There was definitely one launch that did a lot of things in a unique way, and taught me a lot. So that was the launch of the documentary Hungry for Change. And I'm not sure if you know about that one, but what we did was we actually did there's so many lessons. I'm just trying not to say the lessons first. I'll tell you the result first. So what the result was that we did, it was a documentary. We did actually a free screening documentary. This is back in March 2012. And for 10 days, we actually made the whole documentary for free. So this was the thing that, all the money, all the time, all the editing, everything went into this. It was a feature-length documentary, 89 minutes long. And we actually, what we did was we went, we were like, how are we going to launch this? Went through a few different options and strategies. And then what we actually did was we decoupled ourselves from, the ego, and actually went to the film and said, asked the film as an entity, just said, what do you want? How do you think that we should launch it? And the message that we got back from the film was that I just want to be seen. Okay, cool. All right, film, you want to be seen. So how are we going to do that? So what we did was we did a free screening. And okay, first of all, you have to check in with other people, make sure that they're not just going to blow this whole thing up. But what we thought was how could it, if we could get this message out there, and the documentary just delivered this message so perfectly, and we built such a big, if people resonated with this, then what could go wrong? There could massive audience that have had a paradigm shift in their mind. And so anyway, we followed that strategy. We released the trailer for the film March the 1st, 2012. By March the 21st, we had 80,000 people ish give us their email address to watch the premiere when it was going to launch, the 10-day premiere. And so 80,000 people opted in. On March the 21st, it went live, and then it just went crazy. We had a 10-day free screening, and in that time, we had 450,000 people watch it. That's what I think we use Vimeo as the platform. 450,000 people watch it. We had 220,000 email addresses come in, so people who wanted to join. So whether people watched it twice or shared it, we had 220,000 people that built that email list. And then in those 10 days, we made the film available for free, as well as a recipe book available. Sorry, not for free. The DVD was available to purchase, and the recipe book was available to purchase either individually or as a bundle. And in those 10 days, we did 21,000 orders. So average sale just under $50, which meant that we just got over $1 million in 10 days. So $1,035,000 of money collected in those 10 days. While we had, so that was a fairly impressive outcome, we thought.
Well, and opposite of what most movies would do too. Like, you gave away the movie, you didn't sell tickets at a screening or something, which is, and because movies cost a lot of money usually to make, and it's about that first weekend ticket buying or getting people to go watch something like that. That would be the, I guess, the traditional normal way of releasing a film to make your money back that, you collected from all these people to make the movie, right? Or whatever it was. So now I'm curious, what are the lessons out of this? Because clearly you went the opposite direction than what most people would normally do to get this to work. And it seemed to work really well.
And before Michael answers that, I just want to jump in and say, this has now become a business model that people do this with documentaries quite a bit. It's done often, but that was the first time it was ever done.
That was the first time.
They basically invented a business model in doing this.
And I remember bringing it to the group in the first in the Platt meeting. I think it was January 2012, and I shared with everyone the strategy, and everyone went, "Well, that's going to be a huge success or a huge failure. Let us know how you go." It was uncharted territory. It really was, but. What I did especially learn, like, we wrote down goals, and we actually, the interesting part is we wrote down literally, $1 million revenue, 220,000 people opting in, and 500,000 views. So we ended up hitting just over 1 million, just over 220, and just under 500. But once we put those things aside, and I learned this in tennis as well, that's an outcome. They're just outcomes. We can't act on outcomes. We have to work backwards and create a process to achieve that outcome. And so, we then focus on the process. You can know that the outcome is going to, it's there, but we have to now focus on the process. And the process was then being able to go, right, how do we actually make this, how do we empower people once they've watched this to actually want to share it and actually want to take it to people who they know. We want this documentary, this piece of marketing, to be the conversation that they can't have with other people. And so it became this thing that became then shareable, which is why I think we went from like 80,000 people to 220,000 people in 10 days. But it became this thing that it's like, how good's that marketing? How good is your marketing if people want to share your marketing? You know what I mean? It's like, This is what I love about, launches, and it's a thing that has to have value, even if people aren't a customer. Even if they don't go on to be a customer, it's a piece of value that stands on its own 2 feet. So that was one of the lessons. The next one was about then focusing on the process and letting the outcome take care of itself. Usually if you're watching a tennis match, if somebody starts, choking, is because they're thinking about, the win. They're thinking about the outcome of that win. Now I'm going to be through the next round of the tournament, or they're going to the victory speech, or they're already in. And now they've taken their eye off the process, which was getting them into a winning state, and they're focusing on the outcome. Whereas you need to bring it back and focus on the process. And what we did a lot was, just before we sent any piece of communication, we actually stopped, because we're in this digital world. It's very easy to not do this, but we literally stopped and just visualized all the people all around the world that they were actually reading the email. Like, we were watching it drop into the inbox. We were watching people click on it. We were watching them, visualizing it, and then watching them reading it through. And we had this picture that all around the globe were just these little lights going off of people who just felt this little bit of inspiration. We've lit them up with something that's different. And then once we found peace with that and we visualized that, then we actually hit, broadcast and off it went. but just really humanized it. Really just went to that. We're really humans speaking to humans, and in this world of clicks and lists and trips and blasts and whatever, it's very easy to disconnect from the fact that there's really a human on the other end, and really just reconnect with that. There's a bunch of other lessons as well, but
just the I love that, like letting the value stand for itself in your marketing, what the piece was, the focus on the process versus the outcome, right? I think that's such an important distinction in any type of business, or whether you're a salesperson. That was something I always had to focus on, was process and like just doing the actions and not the outcomes, because you're going to get sales, you're going to get no sales, but that's just business. You have positive outcomes and negative ones, but if you focus on consistently making the process happen, it works. And then, so was the last thing visualization? Because that sounds like you guys visualize the impact in like an actual visual way, like lights of people getting inspired from your documentary, and that creating this sort of wave of people who spread the news for you and spread and like essentially make it go viral, right? Like what was it, would you say that was what it was, like the visualization act of doing that, or maybe elaborate on that a bit?
Definitely the humanizing it. So in this case, we were visualizing it, but just really stepping in and caring for people, caring for the recipients, caring for speaking to a human, and they really are troubled or struggled or whatever, and it's not their fault. Just that state of that we really are making a difference, and it being something that's more inspirational, that we're lifting everybody up. Just that we are just humans trying to help humans.
Wow. And it's powerful because humans can tell a lot of other people too. Like it's amazing to think, like, you're powerful in creating that, and then also all the people that got impacted, they can be powerful in spreading that message. When you have something that is aligned like that, from top to bottom, I guess that's why authenticity is so key, to get it lined up from the top all the way down to the bottom, your message and what you're trying to do, so that it can have that maximum impact. And I know it makes me think of when I know Jeff is thinking about his future launches. You always come up with, you really said, I've heard you say this, is you come up with a theme, or you come up with an idea about the launch before anything else really starts to trickle out as far as like what tactics or how it's going to go. Can you talk a little bit about that process? Because it sounds like it's aligned with this.
Yeah, that's where I spend all my time when I'm going into a launch. And I guess, what do I launch? I'm launching product launch formula. So that means a couple things. A, that it has to be a good launch. And, I'm trying to sell a product on how to launch, and I have a lousy launch, it's not good. So that's the first thing. The other thing is it's been on the market since 2005. It's been a long time. I've done a lot of launches for it, and I have to keep it fresh. Of course, the product stays fresh. We're always updating and remaking the product, but the marketing has to feel fresh, because of people, they just, one of the things they love to do is assume that it's, well, you've been selling that thing forever, it must be tired. And so I can't ever have my marketing feel tired. And at the same time, I also know what works, and I want to stick with what works. So it's a bit of a balancing act. So I'll spend a lot of time leading into my launch just thinking about, what is the overall story arc? What's the conversation going on in the market? What's the conversation going on in my ideal prospects? How, this is, Michael alluded to this earlier, but that famous saying of, you want to enter the conversation that's already going on in your prospect's mind. So, what is that conversation, and what is the story arc that I can use in my launch to enter that conversation, and that will be super compelling. So they just can't wait for the next piece of pre-launch content. So they maybe would even share it with people. And so then everything leads from that. Then all your copy, all your pre-launch content all flows from that overall story arc right down into how you make your offer, and possibly even changing the offer, because each year, we come out with an exclusive offer. It changes in some way every single year when we launch it. But I spend a lot of time on that, and that's time of like me just going for a walk in the woods or going for a bike ride, or sitting there and staring out at the sky. It's just a lot of time of percolating and cogitating and thinking about it, and that's like, frankly, I think that's the hardest work when you're doing a launch, at least for me, where I'm at in my career. And then everything, once you get that, boom, then everything flows from there.
Yeah, and that's I love I think you named them as well, but you name that story arc. There's a journey that we're going on together in this window of time, and it's something that's you sit there and you make it should be simple. It should feel that back to that very simple and calm, because there's so much intelligence that goes into making it very simple. And that story arc then just grabs people by the hand, meets them where they're at, walks shoulder to shoulder with them. It's not this face to face, and just takes them on the journey through the launch.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, Michael, I've wrote down all kinds of notes listening to you here, but that idea, if we can give the outcome and the price, how can we have that do the heavy lifting? How can we have that be the 80%? And I'm in that cogitation, percolation, obsessing about a story arc for a promotion that we've got coming up. And this is one of those weird timing things where this episode might actually come out after that promotion. So I'm going to try to be a little obscure about it. But like, to me, it's like, this is going to be for our program that really is about building a business and going beyond just a launch. It's about, how to get that launch done and doing the launch, but doing it really in service of building a business. Because, might sound like sacrilegious for me to say, since I'm like the launch guy, but, one launch does not make a business. One launch might buy you a car. It might even buy you a house. And that's great. But in the end of the day, I'm about helping people build businesses. And where I'm currently at in my thinking for this promotion is like saying, at the end of the day, the way you win, the way we're going to get you to win, the way we're going to make this a win for you, the way we're going to, and when I say win, that means you having a real sustainable business that's going to last for years. The way to do that is not to get you to the launch, but to get you to the debrief after the launch. And when I say that, and this might not end up being the hook, this might not end up being the story, because it's really still in development for me. But what it is it's counterintuitive, because here's the launch guy saying, yeah, I want you to launch, but this isn't about getting you launched. This is about getting you to the debrief after the launch. Because if we can get you to the debrief, then we can make that launch better, whether you sold 1 unit or whether you sold 1,000 units, whether you made $100 or made 100,000. What's really going to build your business over time is then debriefing it and making it better for the next time. And I don't know if that's hooky enough or not. I think it's counterintuitive, which that's one of the things it's counterintuitive is great when you have a hook. But yeah, that's my work in progress. I literally have notes on this. It
resonates with me. I know that, and I've probably said this to you on the court before, Jeff, was, the follow through of your forehand, finish with your elbow in front of your face. You think about the follow through and everything that happens before you make contact. We think that, shouldn't you be thinking about the things that, that happen before you make contact? You can't control it after you've lost contact. Well, but the point is but you're positioning that as the follow through. And for you to hit that follow through with your elbow above your face, you have to have swept beneath the ball. You have to have started below and all that sort of stuff. And same with putting. If putting on the golf green, if anyone ever gets nervous, you think about actually the follow through. You actually think about swinging the club almost like a foot beyond the ball. So then you're not just sneaking up to it and tapping it. It's actually like think through it. You actually hit through the ball.
Like for the forehand, Chris, what he's talking about, and for anyone who's watching on video, it's like, you're hitting that forehand, and what Michael's talking about is having your elbow end in front of your face, because if you've done that, you've started low and you've ended up high, and that's boom, that's your swing.
What's funny is I very similarly in disc golf, which is the sport I happen to be doing a lot of lately. Same thing. You have to be focused on like where you start and going all the way through, following through in order to get it to actually throw at the fastest and best speed towards the target. So I love that. And one thing I do like about what you were just saying, Jeff, with the debrief being the objective, is it does take a lot of the pressure off the outcome, which has been a theme of this, right? Is that, focusing on the process, less on the outcome. And so many people, I think, put a lot of pressure on that first launch, or especially if it's their first launch of a new product, or whether it's their first launch they've ever done in their life. That first launch can be a real pressure cooker for them around like, whoa, the outcome. I need to, like, this has to be everything to prove my concept. And when really it just has to be the first launch, it just has to be get to that debrief. And then once you're there, the power in that of like, it's just the start of the process of figuring out this offer and scaling it to the whole next stage. It's, I don't know, that's cool. It's like the follow through.
Yeah. Well, I know, Chris, from being through so many launches of our launches, we come into them and I know that a lot of the folks on our team, we've got a team of 8 players, and they're driven and they want a goal, and they're like, okay, so what's our goal for this launch? Yeah. And I never, ever say dollars. I never say sales. I never say units. And I know it can be a little frustrating for the team, but it's like, my goal is we're going to show up and execute. Yeah. We're going to measure ourselves on our execution, and knowing that we can't control every factor. We can't control whether our joint venture and affiliate partners hit send. We can't control whether there's a natural disaster or a political disaster during our launch. We can only control whether we show up and execute. We do what we can control really well.
Yeah, it took me a bit of time to coming from my sales goal previous job of like, so what are we going for? I feel like I was one of those people asking that question when I joined the team, but being through so many launches now, it is not to say we don't have goals. We all have ideas and what we want to do, but the focus in our team and as we go through is on what can we control and influence now, right? Like with what's happening and not getting caught up in an outcome, as you mentioned earlier, Michael, where it can kind of paralyze you if you're, the tennis people who break down at the end of a match or something like that. They're focused on the win, or they're focused on the fact they're losing, or whatever it is, instead of on, follow through on their swing and make sure that they do the process that they know how to do. Allow the talent to come out has been something I've heard from sports psychologists when they're coaching golfers, is just, it's just a putt. Like, allow the skill, allow that to carry you through those really high pressure, tense moments. And I think that's very similar in business, is you have to have done the work, and get to that point. You do it over and over and over again, where your skill, you can allow it to come out in those times where there's pressure.
And on a tennis court, it's like you kind of can't win a match. The match is an outcome. You can't even win a set. Winning a set is an outcome. You can't even win 6 games. You can't win one game. You can't even really win a point. What can you do? You can make this serve. Yeah, you can make this return. You can get this ball back in the court. They're the things you can take action on. And if you keep on taking action on that, you get the ball back in the court more than the opponent, you win the point. You keep getting the ball back in the court more than the opponent, you win the game. You keep getting the ball back in the court more than the opponent, you win the set. It's the thing that you can act on. So when Jeff says to go, cool, this is what we can focus on, what we can actually act on, and then the outcome kind of takes care of itself.
Yeah, I love that. Hey, Launch family, we will get back to wrap up this episode in just a minute. But first, I have something very special for you. It actually happened when we finished up the podcast, and I was just talking with Jeff and Michael and asked them, how do you spot authenticity in the marketplace? And are there any red flags for spotting people who aren't being authentic? Now, I just want to know for myself, but we wound up having this discussion for like 10 minutes about it, and it turned out to be really valuable. So we didn't want to take it out of the episode, but it didn't really fit organically into it. So we're just going to send it out to you. All you have to do is text us bonus 2. That's bonus with the number 2 at the end to 1-888-530-0282. That number again is 1-888-530-0282 and text us bonus 2 with the number 2 at the end. Now let's get back to this episode. Sounds like a great time for a quick 2-minute taco break here. So the first one is soft shell or hard shell tacos?
Soft shell.
Correct answer. All right. And then, all right. Are you going for guacamole or are you not going for guacamole?
Yeah, guacamole.
All right. I'm with you on that one. So,
all right. Jeff, you can't. That's right.
Right.
Yeah. The audience knows that one.
I'm flattered that you remember that.
All right. How about this? Homemade tacos or takeout tacos?
For me, takeout is better than homemade.
All right. Awesome. How about this? Would you rather eat a taco on a roller coaster or surfing a big wave?
Surfing a big wave.
I had a feeling with your backdrop that it might be something on a wave, more likely. What about you, Jeff? I haven't asked that one for you.
I'm going to go on a roller coaster.
Awesome.
Yeah, my surfing skills are pretty challenged. Let's put it that way.
So how about this? Would you rather eat a taco with Quentin Tarantino or Martin Scorsese?
Quentin Tarantino.
I'm going to say Scorsese.
It's a tough one to pick between, for sure.
It is difficult. Difficult.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Scorsese did a film with the Rolling Stones, so I just want to hear stories about
there
that
you go.
film.
Well, that was my next question. It was going to be, would you rather eat tacos with the Rolling Stones or AC/DC? I just thought we have to get. I'm going to guess I know the answer to this based on a couple of things that just happened. But
yeah, I'm going with the Stones.
Yeah, I think the Stones. Yep.
I thought you were going to say AC/DC. You went against type there.
I saw some early footage of them recently, and yeah, they didn't seem as interesting. So anyway,
I just want to know how they're still on stage. That's what you got to ask the Rolling Stones, how they're still doing it. That's awesome. All right. If you had to get a taco tattoo or a taco piercing, which one would you pick?
Tattoo.
Piercing.
But can you take the piercing out? I don't know. But yeah.
That's just there, right? Like different levels of commitment. You know what?
Yeah.
Tattoo, do it. All right. Here's a little bit more meta, but if you had to have a taco named after you, all right, what would you put in that taco? So it could be the Walker or the Maidens, or it could be the Jeff or the Michael, whatever you want to call it. But if you had to have a taco named after you, what would you want in that taco?
All right. It'd have to have guacamole. It'd have to have some sauce, some shredded meat in there, some shredded beef, and just a little bit of corn, a little bit of onions.
Nice.
Well, mine's like a fish taco for sure. And just classic fish taco, maybe some coleslaw, maybe a little bit of cheese, probably some lettuce, not coleslaw, but I mean cabbage, and certainly some pico and some hot sauce.
What about honey? Because if you don't know, we've talked about honey on tacos before, but I wonder. Yeah. You're the first person to introduce me to the idea of honey on tacos. So.
Well, that's just Taco Tuesday at our local place. I don't know if you've been there, Michael, and I'm blanking on the name of it, but we've got a great new Mexican restaurant here, and they've got these special tacos on Taco Tuesday. I don't think we've taken.
I don't think I have.
No, it's like off of College, yeah, it's really good. But on Taco Tuesday, they have special tacos that aren't available any other day. And it's tradition you put honey on them, and it sounds weird, but
all right.
And it's a beef taco, and they're really good. They're like, yeah. And it's always a question of like 2 or 3, but we really the right answer.
I have to make sure I'm there on a Tuesday next time.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can't. We've went in there and tried to see if we could bring Platt, do a dinner there for Platt, but it's just not big enough to hold the group.
Yeah, a lot of the best taco places they're a little smaller.
Right.
That's true. Well, that's great. Thanks for indulging me with the 2-minute taco break. And so let's finish off here. Our theme of today's episode was around authenticity and how you can show up yourself authentically in running your business. And I love the facts we came over with, like, this helps you sustain your business and, how to craft great offers that really resonate. I would love to just have maybe some final thoughts from each of you on this word authenticity and this concept of authenticity that people can leave this episode with and take home with them.
I just would love to invite people just to, at the pace that they can tolerate, to keep on stepping more and more into their authenticity. I think their business will light up, their offers will light up, their customers will light up, and the people that they spend their spare time with will change, and it'll just be something that you can sustain for as long as you want to sustain it for, and just life becomes a better place when you hang around with authentic people. So that's what I truly believe.
I would echo that 100%. And I would just say, if we look at what's happened in the market in the last few years, we had this pandemic and everyone was home, and it feels like half of the people that were at home decided to create an online business, which means there's more competition online, and that's just a fact. And I think the way that you stand out from the competition is authenticity. And if you share yourself, then people cannot compete with you. It's a way to eliminate competition. And certainly not everyone in the world is going to resonate with you. Just, there are huge numbers of people that don't resonate with me, that would never be an hour into a podcast with me. And that's fine, because you know what? There's a bunch of other people that do. And not even a bunch, but there's this 0.0001% of the world's population that does resonate with me. And that's been enough to allow me to build an amazing business and an amazing life. And I think all of us, that holds true for each of us. So, it's the way to eliminate competition. It's a way to set yourself apart. And another word I wrote down, we didn't get to it here, but in my notes, I wrote down a word, it's very, to me, related to authenticity, and that word is congruence. And if you have congruence in who you are and what you share, and they are congruent, people can sense that. And I think it's almost like just another word for authenticity. But also, if you have congruence all the way through your launch, your marketing, your copy, your offer, and that starts with, like Michael talked about earlier, figuring out what the outcome you're going to deliver, and then your product is congruent with that outcome, and then your offer is congruent with that. Working backwards, your product, then your offer, then your marketing, your copy, your launch. If they're all congruent, that's how you put together a winning launch. That's how you put together winning marketing that will convert for you.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Launch family, for listening. And we hope this conversation inspires you to dare to launch.